Canberra for Cam's Mortgage Minute on Monday, July 22nd. It would appear that superstition is creeping in more and more even into the home selling and buying process. Back when I was growing up, I noticed that the number 13 was basically remiss in a lot of places. You wouldn't find a 13th floor in a building, you wouldn't see a number 13 on an address. A lot of times people avoided that because they considered it highly unlucky. It was no different than a black cat crossing your path or walking under a ladder. Airlines avoided the number 13 because they thought it was unlucky as well. The new nouveau number that's considered highly unlucky these days is 4, thanks to all our cultural and multicultural shifts. The only time I can think of a famous number 4 would be Bobby Orr, and you know what, for him it worked really well. But the word number 4 in Cantonese sounds like the word death, and also in Mandarin. So that both of those, when you hear the number 4, it sounds like death. And it's considered very unlucky not only in the Chinese culture, but in the Korean culture, the Vietnamese, and the Japanese communities. And in some parts of certain cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and these metropolitan areas, that number 4 in your address can cost you significantly, upwards of $35, $40, $50, $1,000. I'll give you a personal story. My father, way back, had a house he was selling in Vancouver. And that house had the number 444. So it was not only death to you, it was to your family, your ancestors, and anybody else that ever came into existence. And that house was the hardest house to sell, and he lost a bunch of money trying to do it. So I can tell you firsthand that that number 4 is not just a myth, but it's a reality. Now, new condominiums are also not just skipping the 13th floor. In a lot of places in Vancouver and Toronto and these main centers, they're skipping the 4th floor, the 14th, the 24th. There's no references. In Hong Kong, some of the high-rises basically go from 39 to floor 50. They avoid the 4s altogether. And Richmond Hill, back in Ontario, council recently voted on May 15th, to avoid using the number 4 in new addresses after residents complained. Many homeowners are even making applications to change their number from 4 to 2 when there is no number 2 already on the street. And if there is a number 2, you can petition or go to the person who has the number 2 and get permission to use like a 2A or a 2B or a 2C. And the City of Toronto will charge you $400, and in Mississauga there's about $650. Now, I didn't have a chance to check what Vancouver and other places charge, but I'm sure they would follow suit. Now, on the other hand, if you are looking for a lucky number in your address, it seems like the 8s are it. I mean, 7s used to be, certainly in culture, like a lucky number 7, but 8s would be considered the real lucky numbers. And they sound like prosperity. So 4 sounds like death, 8 sounds like prosperity. It's also symmetrical, both circles. So it's considered perfect balance. Yin and yang, everything's in balance. And even better is a house number that has 88. Now, you are really fortunate then. And you might recall that the Chinese Olympics started on 2008, so it was no coincidence that the Chinese wanted to do it to do that. So, bottom line from all of this superstition is that if you're buying a house in a neighborhood, do your research. Find out what cultural myths, superstitions, or what other prevalent things might be appearing in that neighborhood, so that when you make your decision, you don't suddenly get surprised later when you're trying to sell or trying to do something else. You don't want to have this. I know with Feng Shui, they have rules around doorways and how spirits can enter a house, leave a house, prosperity leaves a house. I mean, honestly, I don't know a lot about that, but you know what? People put a lot of stake to it. There is people who consider it very important, and you know what? You have to, in the multicultural community we live in, whether you want to respect it or not is irrelevant. The bottom line is it's going to cost you financially, as far as if you're trying to sell real estate or do business in that culture, because those are things that are valuable to folks like that. Now, some of us may consider it silly, just like walking under a ladder or if a black cat crosses your path. But again, these are cultural norms in other cultures that are certainly very important to them, and we have to be mindful of it, especially in our dealings and transactions. So I just thought I'd share it with you. I mean, a lot of potential buyers out there are paying more and more attention to this. Now, this is maybe not going to affect you in the middle of Saskatchewan, but I can tell you that on the the West Coast in Vancouver and in the major GTA, the Toronto area, it's certainly going to have an impact. So there you go. All I can say is go out there and have a lucky day. Whether you're 8s or 7s, you know what? Maybe those are the numbers you got to play in the next 649. I don't know. Maybe they should get rid of the 4 because it's bad luck and call it a 689. Whatever. Anyways, anything you need mortgage-wise, let us know. Give us a shout at the Auxilium team. We're always ready, willing, and able to help. and we would love to assist you with all your mortgage needs. And enjoy your day. See you tomorrow.